Speaker, on the 9th of December 2015, President Jacob Zuma pressed the red button and dropped what amounted to a nuclear bomb on the economy in South Africa. The decision to fire the Minister of Finance, Nhlanhla Nene, turned an economic downturn into an economic crisis and unleashed a firestorm which destroyed investor confidence in South Africa. We are now in deep economic trouble. We are on the brink of a recession. We have spiraling inflation. We are staring at a fiscal cliff. We are facing a debt mountain, and we risk a ratings downgrade. We have 8.3 million people who do not have jobs or have given up looking for jobs, and who live without dignity, without independence, and without freedom in South Africa. And so the State of the Nation address was an opportunity for the President to inspire the nation, to give hope to the nation, and to lead the nation. It was an opportunity to set out a decisive response to the economic crisis in South Africa. It was an opportunity to set out a decisive response to avoid a ratings downgrade in South Africa. It was an opportunity to give hope to the 8.3 million people who do not have jobs or who have given up looking for jobs in South Africa. And it was an opportunity to do so with passion, with conviction, and with urgency. We got off to a good start, a frank assessment, a turnaround plan, doing things differently. I thought, this is it. This is the moment. But then, nothing. No inspiration, no passion, no conviction, no urgency, no hope, and most important of all, no decisive response to the economic crisis in South Africa, and no decisive response to avoid a ratings downgrade in South Africa. Yes, there was a turnaround plan, but the turnaround plan did not contain any new economic policy. What the turnaround plan did contain was economic policy that had never been implemented. The Presidential Review Commission on State-Owned Enterprises was completed 3 years ago. Its findings have never been implemented, and it's hard to believe that its findings will ever be implemented. And what the turnaround plan did contain was economic policy that had been implemented but that had failed. The cost containment measures are important but are largely symbolic, targeting 25 billion rands worth of expenditure and saving a mere 2 billion rand or 0.2% of total government expenditure in 2015-16. What the turnaround plan also contains was a one step forward, one step backward economic policy contradictions. We want to encourage investment, but then we want to prohibit foreign land ownership, which will discourage foreign investment. And we want to phase out state-owned enterprises, but then we want a state-owned pharmaceutical company, which will crowd out private sector investment. In the end, the turnaround plan only served to illustrate that the Minister of Finance, Mr. Pravin Gordhan, has very little policy space in which to maneuver ahead of the budget. That business leaders were listened to, but they were not heard. And that this government's economic policy is tied up in an economic knot which will never be undone because of the political knot inside the ANC-SACP-COSATU alliance. The fact is, a ratings downgrade is now more likely this week than it was last week. But it's not too late, Mr. President. It can, as you said, be done. But then we actually have to do things differently. And if we are going to do things differently, Mr. President, I would suggest that you consider announcing the following in your reply tomorrow in the State of the Nation debate. And I quote, "Honourable members, I have listened carefully to this debate and understand that we need decisive action to deal with the economic crisis in South Africa. I have therefore decided to amend the turnaround plan based on your inputs as follows. First, to ensure there is no policy uncertainty on the economy, I have decided to appoint the Minister of Finance to head the economic cluster in Cabinet, to take full responsibility for the development of economic policy, to conduct impact assessments of all executive legislation relating to the economy, and to take full responsibility for the implementation of the economic policy outlined in the National Development Plan. Second, to boost economic growth and jobs, I have instructed the Minister of Labour to immediately table amendments to labour legislation to ensure collective bargaining agreements reached between big business and big unions are not imposed on small business, to enforce secret balloting before calling a strike, and to exempt small businesses from complying with onerous labour legislation to encourage them to employ more workers. And I've instructed the Minister of Finance to implement a real youth wage subsidy to help young people find jobs and gain
Honourable
experience.
members, allow Honourable Maynier.
Third, to raise revenue, I have instructed the Finance Minister to dispose of non-strategic state assets, including government stake in Telkom, which would raise an estimated 11 billion rand. And I've instructed the Minister of Public Works to begin disposing of non-strategic state assets, including land and buildings, which has the potential to raise billions of rands in revenue. Fourth, to cut expenditure, I've instructed the Minister in the Presidency to begin reducing the size of the Cabinet to 15 ministries, which will save an estimated 4.7 billion rand. And I've instructed the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans to immediately terminate the acquisition of my VIP jet, which I know will save nearly 4 billion rand. I've instructed the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation to immediately begin closing all non-strategic foreign embassies, high commissions and consulates, saving a significant portion of 3.5 billion rand. I've also instructed the Minister to table a detailed quarterly report on spending for each department on non-core goods and services, including spending on travel, catering, entertainment and consultants in this Parliament. Because at the end, we know transparency is the most cost-effective method of preventing wasteful expenditure. And finally, to improve the performance of state-owned enterprises, I have instructed the Minister of Public Enterprises to immediately begin implementing a program to privatize or part privatize state-owned enterprises, beginning with the privatization of South African Airways. In closing, given his poor performance in this debate, I would like to congratulate the Minister of Economic Development on his appointment as ambassador to China. The Department of Economic Development is consequently redundant and will be shut down immediately, saving an estimated 1.4 billion rand over the next 2 financial years. Mr. President, it can be done, but only if we actually do things differently. And we must do things differently to give hope to the 8.3 million people who do not have jobs or have given up looking for jobs, and who live without freedom and without independence and without dignity in South Africa. Because in the end, South Africa will never belong to all who live in it, as long as millions of people without jobs simply live to die in South Africa. It can be done, but only if we actually do things differently. It's up to you, Mr. President, and so over to you. I thank you.